Specflow tutorial part 12 parallel execution. In part 11 we have learned about binding from external assembly. So in this session we are going to learn about how to execute test cases parallelly. So let me start the session. So when we guys are talking about a parallel execution, or you can say when we guys are talking about execution, we are using a unit test providers. One is a NUnit, XUnit and a MS test. So we are also going to use these unit test providers to execute our test cases parallelly. So when we guys are talking about the parallel execution, we only able to do a feature files parallels. We cannot run scenarios parallel. So previously we guys were having a Specflow run. This Specflow run allows scenarios to run parallel, but now the Specflow has stopped the support for this Specflow run. So that is the reason behind it. We are going to use these unit test providers to execute a test cases parallel. So let me flip to Visual Studio to understand with an example. Right now we have one project that is a Specflow session, and this Specflow sessions we have created in the previous sessions, and this Specflow session is having a two feature files. One is the event registration feature file and there is a login.feature file. So these feature files have a different scenarios, and when we guys are talking about execution of these scenarios, and right now what we guys are using it as a test provider, as a unit test provider, we are using an NUnit. So whenever we guys are talking about a NUnit, so that NUnit is going to execute, or you can say whenever we are going to execute our test cases parallel, then it is going to run a feature files parallel. It is not going to run a scenarios parallel. So this is a thing which we need to keep in mind. To run the test cases parallel, we need to have a setting here in this project. What we need to do is right click on the project, say add new items, and here we need to search is assembly, and here is the assembly information file. So this information file we need to add it on our project. Let's give a proper name, remove a one, click on add, and it is going to add a assembly info.cs. In this assembly info.cs file we are going to add the information, or you can say we are going to add the settings related to a parallel. So when we guys are talking about execution, we are using an NUnit. It means we have to import a NUnit here in this .cs file. So let's have this using, we can say NUnit dot, and we need to import a namespace related to NUnit framework. Now we have these settings. We can keep it as it is. If you want, you can remove it, but I am keeping it default as it is. Here we need to use assembly. Assembly is an attribute. Let's use the assembly. And here we need to use a parallelizable. Parallelizable is an attribute that helps a test assembly fixtures or a method that may be run in a parallel. So we need to use a parallelizable, and inside the parallelizable we need to use a parallelizable scope dot, and we need to have a fixtures here. After having this parallelizable, we need to tell how many test cases, or you can say how many feature files we want to run it parallel. For that we need to add another attribute for the assembly. We are saying level of parallelism. Here we need to provide how many feature files we need to run it parallel. Right now int level. So let's have two feature files as a parallel we want to run it. So these are the two lines we need to add it if you want to run your test cases parallel. Right now I have added a level of parallelism is equal to 2. It means this is going to run a 2 feature files parallel, and if you want to run a 3 feature files parallel, then you need to mark this as a 3, and if you want to run a sequential, then you can mark a 1 as well. So let's have a 2 to run a 2 feature files parallel. So let's go to test explorer, and here we have a 2 feature files. One is an event registration feature file, and another is a login.feature. So let's have this and click on run. We can see these 2 feature files are running in parallel. I have already added a 5 seconds wait in this, so that is the reason behind it. These are rolling it out at this point of time. We can see with the help of these 2 settings we can run our feature files parallel. So when you are using an NUnit, XUnit or MS test, those are allowing us to run a feature files parallel. They are not allowing us to run a scenarios parallel. If you want to run your feature files parallel, then you need to add an assembly class file, and then you need to import a NUnit framework, parallelizable, parallel scope.fixtures. We need to add it, and we also need to add a level of parallelism, how many feature files we want to run it parallel. If you talk about the additional resources, I have already created one course that is on the Udemy, and that course help you to learn a professional automation framework creation with the C#, Specflow and the Selenium. So that course is going to help us to create an enterprise level automation framework with a different design patterns, builder design pattern, singleton design pattern, a strategy design pattern, and dependency injection design pattern. So this is the one of the most important design pattern where we guys are not creating the object with the help of the new operator. So this dependency injection design pattern helping us to create the object without utilizing a new operator. Another is a IOC design pattern. So these all design patterns helping a automation framework which we have created in this Udemy course, making a more robust and a more reliable as well. So this course help us to build the thought pattern for designing and targeting the framework, and this course also help us to build the capabilities to understand any complex code base. So after completing the course, you will able to create your own professional level automation framework. After completing this course, you will able to create your own professional level automation framework from the scratch, not with this language but with the other languages as well, because a framework development is not dependent on any of the language. So framework code also uploaded with the course. If you want, you can enroll that particular course on the Udemy. Please subscribe this channel to have the notifications of a new automation related sessions.